Oftentimes what I hear from Jews and Israelis about trying to justify and vindicate themselves upon what have they done in the last 80 years or so since the creation state of Israel in 1948 is that they say, what we have done is because this was our homeland and we just came to take it back from whom it belongs to. I have two things to say to this claim. Number one is that who was the person that took this away from you? There were multiple Roman wars with the Jews, one in 67 BC, one in 113, one in 132, and one around the 630s. These 4 wars, essentially Romans kicked out and eradicated Jews from Jerusalem. They were not the Arabs or other Semitic people who committed this against you. The second thing that I want to say is that, as you may know, Judaism happened before Christianity and Islam. When Christians subsequently came along, they forced the Jews living in Jerusalem, they made them a deal. They said, if you become Christian, you're allowed to live here. The ones who didn't accept it left, they went to Europe, and now are the ones who are coming back as Jews to their supposedly homeland. So many of the Jews of that time became Christian. And, they said, so be it. We label ourselves as Christians. We, under the ground, we practice even Judaism. And we get to live in our homeland. We're connected to our homeland. Land is very important. It has some sacredness, and you're connected to the land is what gives existence to you, just like how a tree is essentially grows in one place and is so accustomed to that area. So later on, Islam comes along, and Arabs bring it up, and and Arabs are another Semitic people, and that's another thing. They have made this whole notion of being a Jew as the only Semitic people, as if the Arabs are not Semitic people. These are all one people. They're all Semitic people. Their beliefs are the same thing. Islam comes from Judaism, so does Christianity. But the thing that I'm trying to say is that when Islam comes in and they say the same things, we're talking about 1400 years ago, just almost like 30 years after that last war that Romans had with the Jews. Islam comes along, and then they say to them, okay, well, you can live here. Number one, that you follow the same God as Abraham, so we do. Number one, that's okay. They let a lot of Jews live there, and a lot of them become, out of pandering and so many other things, they become Muslim. But nonetheless, underground they practice Judaism. The point that I'm trying to make is that in the absence of all these Jews who left and they went to, other countries across Europe and later to United States and elsewhere, the people who are living there, these are the same Jews that just converted racially and ethnically. They're still the same Jewish people. There's nothing different between them. They're killing their own people. There's nothing tribalistic about that. There's nothing humanistic about that. That is, they don't believe in the notion of the Torah, that is, unity among all the tribes of Israel or the tribes of, Semitic people living there. That's not what they believe in. They're fighting for the corporations and the military complexes. Most of them were located in America. The same corporation, the same Europeans whom, when the Jews were being butchered in Germany and across Europe, they did not let them to seek refuge into France or Britain or to America, to the United States. Matter of fact, Hitler went on such an ambition to try to commit such a hideous crime against the Jews because he felt confident that everybody's in consensus with what he says. And that indeed happened. When Hitler went and took over Czechoslovakia, the British Prime Minister, Chamberlain, came and met with Hitler in person, shook his hand and says, go ahead. We love you, do that. There's so many Jews living in Czechoslovakia and so subsequently in Poland. He said, go ahead. Yes. We agree with you. Go ahead, do it. The only people that allowed the Jews and gave them safety and sanctuary where the people living in that era. They were like, well, you know what, these people, they belong here. They're our descendants. Let them come in. We have become Muslim, but they are Jews. They're our brothers. They're our ancestors. They came in, and this is what they got for being good. Now, the Americans and the Europeans who committed such a hideous crime on the Jews and let them bleed to death, now they've turned the friends of Israel, and they're the good people. These are the diabolic things. I hope anybody who's listening to this understand. We're doing the most hideous crimes for no reason. I hope we change our ways, because I believe that there is something as a restoration of the negativity at some point, and I think that would mean such a grave consequences for what we're doing. That's just how karma works. And karma is nothing but restoration of balance in the world. When there's so much evil, something will happen. I hope that people come together around these countries, the Western countries, and also around the world, and they stop these ways. We're essentially just happily allowing these few military complex weapons and arms manufacturers to enjoy the luxury of throwing us like gladiators in front of each other so they can sell their weapons. I don't think we're going to see any good days with such outdated and essentially barbaric ways of doing things. It's from us. We're doing it to ourselves.